I'm Mike.
I'm Sam. Let's get into it.
What's my favorite Patrick Mahomes moment? Probably when he comes in the huddle and he sounds like a frog. That's probably my favorite moment. I crack up every time, just like it's the first time. You want to hear it?
Do it right. Do it right.
Yeah, Kermit the Frog sounds just like that. I can't do that no more because he ain't gonna throw me the ball no more.
Welcome to episode 58 of the Mike and Sam Sports Show. We're welcomed by the Hottest Take Sports podcast again. We're going to preview the Super Bowl. Before we get into the Super Bowl, we're going to talk about the championship games that happened 2 weeks ago. So what are you guys' thoughts on I'll go with the Buccaneers-Packers game first, since that was the more intense game, more meaningful game, since the Bills kind of got blown out by the Chiefs.
Yeah, I predicted that the Packers would win that game. That was the one I got wrong last week. And really, I think I was really impressed by what the Bucs did versus the Packers. They really played as a team, and we were talking about some of these things. Like, I think Mike, you predicted the Bucs were going to win, and looking back on it, I really think that was an amazing pick.
Thank you.
Excuse me. And really, the Bucs are just showing that they are playing as a unit, and that Tom Brady he's still got it. And that's one of the reasons, we'll get into it later, that I think this Chiefs game is you cannot sleep on the Bucs in this game, because I think they're playing the best football they've played all season, and they're very hot. So as far as that the Packers Bucs game goes, I think I took away more that the Bucs are legit rather than the Packers are, fake or pretenders. I think that was a really good game from both sides, but the Bucs are here for a reason.
Yeah, I agree. The Bucs are here for a reason. I didn't get a chance to watch the first half. I know Brady threw 3 touchdowns in the first, 3 interceptions in the second. So a big question is, which Brady are we going to be getting in the Super Bowl, especially with the Chiefs coverage? Are you going to get the guy that throws 3 touchdowns, or the guy that is underthrowing balls to Mike Evans on deep routes and is getting picked off? So I think that's a big question we'll see, but I still think obviously the Bucs are here for a reason. I mean, you saw how they were able to put pressure on Aaron Rodgers, and obviously it makes it a hell of a lot easier when you don't have first team All-Pro David Bakhtiari. But the thing is, Eric Fisher also tore his Achilles last week. So now you got the Bucs going up against Mike Remmers, another second string offensive tackle. So I think I'm really excited to see if that pass rush can kind of duplicate what they did last week 2 weeks ago versus the Packers.
Yeah, for me, that NFC Championship was a perfect example of why off seasons matter and why specifically the NFL draft matters, because you look at the Packers draft, they trade up in the first round to go get Jordan Love, a quarterback. They get a gimmicky power back. Sorry, A.J. Dillon, but they get a gimmicky power back in the second round. They draft a fullback in the third round, and then they draft a linebacker who was getting DNPs all year and wasn't even a rotational piece on that defense. Whereas you look at the Buccaneers, they're making win now moves. They trade up in the draft and draft a tackle, a position of need. And in the fifth round, meanwhile, you look at the other side of the ball and you have Packers receivers struggling to get open. You have Tyler Johnson, a fifth-round receiver, rookie receiver this year, making huge plays, huge catches for the Buccaneers late in that game when early or late third quarter, early fourth quarter, the Green Bay Packers started to sneak back into that game, and you have Tyler Johnson stepping up. Meanwhile, you have the third round, fourth round, the first round pick of the Green Bay Packers standing on the sideline. So to me, it's a perfect example of a general manager, a front office, and a organization going all in, trying to win a Super Bowl versus a team trying to lock up their long-term security. And I think that right there is why the Buccaneers ended up winning that game, because of the moves that were made in the offseason and in the draft. But going on the Buccaneers and the Chiefs more specifically, I love when the best 2 teams in football end up meeting in the Super Bowl, because I think a lot of the times that ends up happening in the NFC or AFC championship. But I do think the Buccaneers are a great team. I think the Chiefs are a great team, and I think the Packers are too. I agree with Jack. I don't think they were pretenders, but I think the Buccaneers just had the edge talent-wise.
I mean, I've constantly, during this playoff route, I've constantly doubted the Buccaneers. I picked the Saints to win. I picked the Packers to win, and I was close to saying the Washington was going to win in the wild card weekend. But I really thought this team was very unexperienced. They're young. None of them have really made the playoffs during their career. But Brady, he just elevates the whole team to another level. I saw a quote saying that, like, when the Packers got the ball back driving down the field, people had their heads down and they were crying. And Brady said, "Why are you crying? The game's not over." So he just motivates this whole team. And, it's exciting to see these two great quarterbacks play each other in the Super Bowl. But, I think the main story of this NFC Championship game is, like Michael was talking about, is the Packers. Just after the game, we had Rodgers and a press came just like bitching and moaning about how he doesn't really want to play here anymore. He doesn't know what his future entails. And Rodgers didn't even he played great, but there was moments where he could have done things differently. In the red zone, he had a massive hole and he could have ran for a touchdown when he decided to throw it. So, the Packers did shoot themselves in the foot a lot. Also additionally with that score right before halftime, the Scotty Miller win, that guy just had a terrible coverage. I think it was King who just had an awful game. So, kudos to the Buccaneers winning this game, but there's also some flaws that the one seed Packers had.
Definitely. I like that you brought up the Scotty Miller touchdown. I think that was a huge swinging point in this game. But to me, like, that's on Tom Brady, and that's the experience. That's Tom Brady, like, knowing exactly what to do, not worried about, the fact that there's 5 seconds on the clock, whatever it was, 10 seconds. And that's where in this Chiefs game, so Tom Brady, I don't think is the reason that the Bucs are here. I don't know how to say this. Like, okay, he is the reason, but at the same time, like, I think the Bucs defense is really like what's leading the charge, and then Tom Brady is doing what he needs to do to get the win, and that's what he's always done in his entire career. Like, I don't think Tom Brady's going to go out and outduel Patrick Mahomes and throw 500 yards, but what he is going to do is take advantage of every opportunity and not, not lose them the game. Like you said, Aaron Rodgers, shooting themselves in the foot. So for me, it's Tom Brady just brings the experience, like you said, raising the rest of the team, and then it really just allows, their team to kind of play the best football that they can.
Yeah, I really like how you brought up defense, and that's what I'm going to focus on here. I mean, if you go to any of Brady's championship teams, like, you remember one defensive player that made a huge play in the game, Malcolm Butler, Gerard Mayo, like Rob Ninkovich, like the list goes on of people. And I mean, this defense is really good. They have a really good linebacker core with Levante David and Devin White. They have a really good pass rush unit with Jason Pierre-Paul and Ndamukong Suh. You get Vita Vea back. I mean, they're just stacked there. The one thing that's going to be a huge deciding factor is obviously the secondary with guys like Sean Bunting Murphy, Carlton Davis, Antoine Winfield. They have not been great against the pass this year. And I think it's going to be really exciting to see how they can kind of cover up guys like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. But I mean, they held their own versus the Packers pass offense, I think, which is obviously one of the best in the league. Obviously, you have Devontae Adams. So, I mean, the defense is really going to have to step up in the Super Bowl. And like they did this 2 weekends ago versus the Packers. And it's so cliche, but defense wins championships at the end of the day. And Tom Brady can only do so much on offense versus, Patrick Mahomes' offense, who you already know is going to score.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you guys. I don't think last year's Bucs team is talked about enough. If you go 8-8 and your quarterback throws 30 interceptions, that's absolutely incredible. You're one top 15 game manager-esque quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contending team, and that's exactly what happened to this Buccaneers team. I'm not trying to take anything away from Tom Brady, but this team was immensely talented before Tom Brady joined. They added some weapons. They added Antonio Brown. They added Gronk. They added Antonio Winfield. They have another year in this Todd Bowles system for this defense. And look at that. They're in the Super Bowl. That's no coincidence. This team was great last year, and they're still great this year. And looking at Tom Brady, I do think he's the greatest quarterback of all time, so I'm not trying to take anything away from him. But I would look at about 4 out of his 6 Super Bowl victories and say he was a game manager in that game. And even looking at the 2 I didn't count, looking at that Falcons Super Bowl, their defense, I know, let up 28 points very early on in that game, but basically pitched a shutout from early third quarter till overtime. And then looking at that Seahawks Super Bowl, like you said, John, Malcolm Butler came up with a huge all-time great interception to win them that Super Bowl. So if Tom Brady like I said 2 weeks ago, he just needs to play 80% of what Patrick Mahomes plays, 80% of what Aaron Rodgers plays for the Bucs to have a chance in that game. But where I kind of lean towards the Chiefs, and we're going to get into this, is I think the Bucs were way more talented than the Packers, so they can kind of get away with Tom Brady playing 70, 80% of what Aaron Rodgers played. But I don't think that's the case in the Chiefs' case because the Chiefs are just an immensely talented football team. They're a very well-coached team, but we'll definitely get into that matchup in a bit.
If I can hop you just for a second, Sam, I want to emphasize the point you made about Tom Brady. Like when I said that Tom Brady wasn't the reason that the Bucs were in the Super Bowl, I meant he wasn't the only reason.
Yeah.
So like Tom Brady is the reason, but he's so much more. Like the Buccaneers team, like you said, is so much more than just Tom Brady. And while yes, he's the greatest of all time, it is important to mention that the Buccaneers are here because of more than just a 43-year-old quarterback.
Yeah, I think what the key thing about Tom Brady, I think, he just brings leadership. They wouldn't be able to make this far if they still had Jameis Winston. Obviously, he threw in 30 interceptions, but barring the 30 interceptions, he did throw 30 touchdowns. But he doesn't have the leadership that
too. So.
Yeah, he didn't have the leadership that Brady has, and that's what makes
Right.
them a Super Bowl contending team. Brady might not be. I think the story of his whole career. I mean, I'm the biggest Tom Brady hater out there, but he's one of the best leaders in all of NFL history. I mean, he has a chip on his shoulder since he was drafted in the 6th round. So it's incredible that he's still here. He's made his 10th Super Bowl, which is just absurd. But yeah, I think it's gonna be a fun game, and I think Tom Brady really does a lot for this young core with the Buccaneers. Moving on, we're gonna talk about quickly about that Chiefs Bills game. I mean, I was hoping for a very, very fun game. I mean, the Bills were the hottest team in football coming into this game, I want to say. They were just steamrolling a lot of their opponents at the end of the year, and Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs was a connection. I mean, unlike second to none in the NFL right now. But I mean, Chiefs went out there and they just kind of they did their thing. They really just had a time possession. The Bills, for a lot of the opportunities they had in the red zone, they kind of Sean McDermott in the press conference after was questioned why he went for field goals, and he said he was just looking for points, but I don't understand when you're playing the Chiefs, you're not going to win games by just kicking field goals. So another opportunity, like I said, with the Packers, the Bills kind of shot themselves in the foot by going for these field goals and not going for the touchdowns.
Yeah, that was not as good of a game as some people had hoped going into it. Josh Allen kind of reverted a little bit back to form, from the season he was having. That Diggs connection wasn't quite as strong as it had been throughout the season. But the Bills are close. I do think it's important for the Bills this offseason to not get complacent and to make moves because I still think they're, maybe a piece or two away. They're like we said, they're clearly just inferior to the Chiefs. Like the point we brought up was what can the Bills do that the Chiefs can't, and that was completely the case in that game. The Chiefs were the Chiefs. They played them as they've played all season, and that was more than enough to take care of the Bills. And that's going to be like we've talked about, like in this Bucs game, like the Chiefs are going to score points. They're going to do that. It's really about the Bucs not beating themselves. So it'll be interesting. I hope for a better matchup in the Super Bowl than we saw with the Bills Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are going to score no matter what defense they're playing. It's how you can create turnovers versus them, and that's one of the hardest things to do in the NFL. Patrick Mahomes had the lowest interception percentage in the entire NFL this year. It was under 1%, which is crazy. He had 6 interceptions on 588 attempts, which is absolutely insane to think about. And I mean, you can't, the Bills could not create turnovers versus them. And the thing too that absolutely killed the Bills was the Chiefs' rushing attack. When the Chiefs are running on both cylinders, they're absolutely unstoppable. I mean, you have Cole Hardman going for a 50-yard jet sweep. I mean, that's got to be so degrading to your defense. When you have a wide receiver running for 50 yards on you. And that's a big thing that the Buccaneers are going to have to focus on. Can you try your best to make this Chiefs team one-dimensional? And the Bills just obviously weren't able to do it. And to Jack's point, the Bills, they can't get complacent. They're still a step away because there was no stopping the Chiefs in that game for them.
Yeah, the Chiefs played an absolutely amazing game. But I think the consensus around the league, and especially in the Chiefs locker room, I was listening to Patrick Mahomes in a Super Bowl presser talking about this. Even though they went 15-1 this season and obviously won all their playoff games up to this point, they feel as though they haven't played a complete 100% gas on the pedal the entire game this entire season. That's incredible that Patrick Mahomes and other people can say that, considering again they're 15-1. So I think if they're saving that full complete game for the Super Bowl, that's going to be trouble for the Buccaneers. But looking at this Bills game more, again, like we said 2 weeks ago, the Bills just are kind of a Walmart brand of the Chiefs, and you're not going to beat the Chiefs at their own game. The Bills, I think this was a huge victory for them just this entire season. They didn't make moves in the offseason besides the Stephon Diggs trade to win now, and they got all the way to the AFC Championship. I think for them, it's the most important thing to retain Brian Dable, their offensive play caller, someone who's transformed Josh Allen. I think it's important to get a bit more development out of Josh Allen, even though he had an MVP caliber season. He's worried me in the playoffs thus far. Last year against the Texans, and then this year played shaky against the Ravens, then played okay against the Chiefs. So I think a bit more development out of him would be great. And they just need a running game. They just have lacked an identity on the rushing attack the entire season. You can't rely on your quarterback. I know how good Josh Allen is at running the football. I think he's the third best mobile quarterback in the NFL. But you need a good backfield, not even a good running back, but a good 2, 3 guys that you can rely upon. And that just wasn't the case with the Bills this year.
Yeah, going off the point Michael said about the Chiefs not really playing a full 4-quarter game, I want to bring up the Chiefs Buccaneers game, kind of segueing into the Super Bowl matchup a little bit. But the Chiefs Buccaneers game that happened earlier in the year, the Chiefs were up 24 or 27-10 entering the fourth quarter, and they just kind of had a bunch of empty drive after empty drive, and the Buccaneers scored 14 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, making a 24-20 or 27-24 lead by the Chiefs. So I mean, if the Chiefs continue, if they play like that in the Super Bowl, if they give Tom Brady breathing room after they obtain a big lead, I mean that's gonna be a bad news for the Chiefs because they need to play a full four quarters against this Buccaneers team, especially because even this week, the time when the Chiefs did beat the Buccaneers weren't playing like the level they are now. So, I mean, they need to keep their foot on the gas the whole game. These Chiefs to be able to keep Tom Brady down.
I totally agree that they really do need to keep their foot on the gas. Number one, it's Tom Brady in the Super Bowl. But number two is I think the Buccaneers defense matches up as well as you really can with this Chiefs team. Like no cornerback can really hang with Tyreek, so you're never going to get a perfect matchup there. But as far as like they have a really solid set of linebackers. Levante David has been great in both run and pass coverage game. I think he's a guy that might be able to hang with Kelsey over the middle a little bit more better than some of these other teams. You're never going to stop Tyreek Hill, but if you can kind of contain him a little bit, I know they've got decent talent in that secondary. And really, I think I wanted to mention when you said about the when you said the Mecole Hardman thing, is like it's so degrading when a wide receiver goes for a 50-yard run, and it's even more degrading when it's not Tyreek Hill. Like when you're letting even their second and third string guys beat you, that's when they turn into the Warriors and they really just pour it on. And so, really, I think the Bucks defense has the ability to contain, and then if you're the Chiefs, you gotta keep your pedal to the metal because Brady in the Super Bowl, it might as well be like you could really make an argument that the Buccaneers might have a quarterback advantage in this matchup right now. Like I'm not saying I'm not going that far, but you can make that argument. So it's going to be important for the Chiefs to play their best football, just like what the Buccaneers are doing right now.
Yeah, a couple things. First of all, can the Chiefs keep their foot on the pedal going into the fourth quarter? I think it was like you said that they said they hadn't even played a full game in their opinion yet. And the thing is, if you go look at Patrick in the fourth quarter games, he has his best completion percentage. He has his second most touchdowns, but he also has 2 interceptions. But I mean, that's out of 6, so it's not like it's a ton. I think they'll be prepared. They'll be able to keep their foot on the pedal. This is a team that's good enough to flip on the switch whenever they want to. And they were even able to do it with their backup. You saw how that went with the Browns. And yeah, they'll be able to hang. The thing is, going into the Bucs defense, like Jack was talking about, how do you stop someone like Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce, with Hill having 172 yards versus the Bills, Kelce having 118 with 2 touchdowns? I mean, it genuinely seems impossible. And I mean, the Bucs, they don't have the best secondary at all. Like Sean Bunting Murphy had like 2 touchdowns last week, had a passer rating on the season of over like 123. So like they're gonna tear them up. But like kind of what I said before, like you really got to make them one-dimensional. The past couple weeks, the Chiefs on the Browns ran for like 142 yards, and last week versus the Packers, they ran for like 120. The Bucs, though, they have the number 1 run defense in the NFL. They're number 1 in yards allowed and number 1 in yards per carry. So can you really take the focus off like Clyde Edwards-Helaire? Can you take the focus off of Le'Veon Bell, off of Williams, and just focus on the wide receivers? But then another layer to that with Andy Reid is what he makes it so special. You saw versus the Browns, this guy runs quadruple option run and pass plays. So like there's no real way to stop the offense, but I think their best bet would just to be completely limiting the run game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, John. Going off with that point, I think the number one thing the Buccaneers need to focus on in order to win this game, not only do they need to win time of possession, I think they need to dominate time of possession. I want to see the Buccaneers run it on first down, run it on second down, have a 3rd and 5 for Tom Brady to pass a short to intermediate pass. I think in that way, that's how they're going to end up winning this game. We've seen Todd Bowles, or not Todd Bowles, we've seen Coach Arians really struggling to kind of conform to the Tom Brady way offensively. But I think as the season progressed, Tom Brady kind of started having more of his influence and footprint on this offense, which is why they kind of really had this huge late season surge. Again, Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, not the biggest fans of them, but I think they've been very honorable in their role this season. So if they can go out there and do really good against the Chiefs, who have been very on and off with their run defense, some weeks they've been amazing, some weeks they've been a little shoddy. So I think that's the key of this game. Again, for the Chiefs, if they're running the ball all over this Buccaneers offense, which I don't think is going to happen, or Buccaneers defense, I should say, then I think the Chiefs, I don't see how they lose this game.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with the time of possession thing. I'll bring up a quick college football example. Like when Army played Oklahoma a couple years ago, Army was nowhere close as good as Oklahoma was. Obviously, they had Kyler Murray, who was the eventual Heisman winner, but Army went in there and the time of possession was absurd. I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but like Oklahoma had the ball for like I think like 15 minutes, if that, and Army like brought them to overtime. They really played with they played their strength and kind of just really limited the amount of time that the Oklahoma had the ball. So if the Buccaneers are able to do that, really run the ball down the throats of the Chiefs defense, because the Chiefs defense isn't that great. So if playoff Lenny is able to really go off and Ronald Jones have a good game, it's going to be a close game at the end of the fourth quarter. They just have to, it comes down to their defense, like you guys all said, if they're able to kind of neutralize that run. Because obviously they're going to beat them in the air with the pass nerve. They can beat anyone in the air. But if the Chiefs are able to get yards on the ground, that's when you start losing control of the game. Because if they're able to even have a net positive with the ground game, that's when it's going to get out of hand.
Yeah, I think maybe the reason that the Chiefs have been able to run the ball is because everyone looks at Tyreek and Kelce and focuses on stopping the pass. So they're like, well, you're going to do that. We'll pivot and run the ball. And that's what makes the Chiefs so dangerous. So I do think time of possession is huge. And Leonard Fournette, don't sleep on him. He's been playing pretty well in these playoffs. So I like that point you brought up, Mike. Real quick, I want to send it around the horn. We haven't actually made our official picks Who do you guys think is going to win, Chiefs or Bucks?
I guess I can start. I'm going to go Bucks 38, Chiefs 35. I have faith in the GOAT. I have faith that he's going to be able to get it done versus this Chiefs team. The time of possession thing is kind of faulty in my opinion. No offense to you guys, because every team has said that going into this year. The best way to keep Patrick Mahomes from not scoring is not keeping him on the field. The problem with that is, though, that with their offense, they can score within 45 seconds. And even if they're 90 yards from the end zone, they can still do it in under a minute. So I mean, obviously it will help if they can run the ball and keep Mahomes off the field, but I don't think that's the best way to stop him. And I think that their linebacker core and that their defensive front will be able to put enough pressure on Mahomes to create a turnover or two and help them win this game.
Yeah, John, that's a great point with the time of possession. You're absolutely right in that the Chiefs could have the ball for 5 minutes and they could score 5 touchdowns. That's absolutely true. With that being said, though, I think the Chiefs are going to win this game. I haven't bet against the Chiefs all season. I'm not going to stop now. The Chiefs are just one of the best teams in NFL history in terms of just offensive firepower. Their play calling, Eric Bieniemy, Andy Reid, even Patrick Mahomes in there is just absolutely incredible. I think Patrick Mahomes has proven that he's looked sharp after that mini concussion scare. I think this game has some serious blowout potential, but I don't think that's going to happen. I don't have an exact score, but I think the Chiefs are going to win.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Chiefs as well. I think it's going to be a close game at first. The first half, I think it's going to be a very close game, and then it's going to get a little ugly in the second half. I'm going to go 31-23 Kansas City Chiefs with the back-to-back Super Bowl champions.
I'm going to agree with John here and go with the Bucks. That might be wishful thinking because I kind of want Tom Brady to win one more Super Bowl, just prove that he can do it with another team. But I also do feel like the Bucks have a legitimate chance. I think if the Chiefs do win, I think I agree with Sam. I think that it's going to be a close game, and then the Chiefs will just pull away at the end. But I'm going to go with the Bucks. I think it's going to be like around that 30s mark. And real quick, just to touch on the point you said, John. Look, time of possession maybe isn't the best way to put it, because I feel like you're absolutely right. The Chiefs can score in less than a minute, and you could dominate time of possession, and the Chiefs could still have more points. I think the biggest thing though is like not playing the Chiefs game, right? Like if you go in there and trying to outscore the Chiefs, out offensive the Chiefs, like good luck, you're gonna lose that game. So I think just trying to go out at it at a different angle, maybe just trying to just throw something at the Chiefs that they haven't seen as far as the game plan goes is really kind of important, because obviously if you do what every other team has done, you're not going to win, and that's pretty evident, the fact that the Chiefs have lost one game the entire season, including the playoffs.
Yeah, I think where Patrick Mahomes has struggled a bit when all game you keep him inside the pocket, all game you give him the underneath stuff. I think he gets a little bit itchy and antsy and kind of wants to scramble outside the pocket sometimes, wants to get that big play. But if he has the mindset, and he's proven that throughout his career he does, it's just in some hiccups, some games he hasn't, that he can just take the easy stuff, take the underneath stuff, then the Chiefs are going to win that game. But before we end the show, I know we were talking about some prop bets earlier. I was looking at the Vegas odds right now. Tom Brady over under 0.5 rushing yards. I love that over. I think he's going to get at least one QB sneak here in the Super Bowl.
Wait, it's his over under rushing yards is 0.5. Wow.
It is 0.5. Yep.
Yeah, I think like if you look at every game he's played this year, he's always around like 0.3. So it's a little sketch.
Yeah, I don't know. I if we're going around doing props, I'm gonna pick the chalk lock of the century. I think everyone kind of has this, but it's Travis Kelce anytime touchdown. That it just seems. I mean, it's inevitable. It's like I don't even know. You can do it. It's like. I mean, it's a guarantee at this point. Like I think he scored more touchdowns had more games with touchdowns than not by a pretty large margin. So.
Talking on the Tom Brady rushing stats, this past year he has -1 rushing. Like this year he has -1 rushing yards in the playoffs. In 2018 he had -4. So 2017 was the last time he was positive in yards. So honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if he went with the under because it's not a bad choice. I'm not a huge bet person. The one that I like that you guys brought up the most was the weekend change of outfits. So I would go with the over on that.
Yeah, I'll definitely go with the weekend 0.5 outfit change over that. And then I'm gonna go. It's pretty easy one. Patrick Mahomes MVP. I think he has the highest odds, which is like minus 120. So I'll probably do that. But I'm gonna hit you guys with a very hot take right now. The Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Andy Reid retires after the Super Bowl. Eric Bieniemy becomes the head coach because no one has interviewed Eric Bieniemy. No one's there's no reports of him being interviewed anywhere. So maybe he becomes the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs. He's just holding out for old Andy to retire.
I got another hot take for you.
That's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if Andy Reid's done is my only question about that. I think that's a really interesting. Like if they did move on, I think that could be absolutely the reason that Bieniemy has not been talking to teams. But yeah, I don't know. That's spicy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know there's everything going on with Bieniemy not being hired as like a colored coach and stuff, and that's like a legitimate issue. I think that the Chiefs would be smart to do their best to try to keep him because Andy Reid is kind of on the back end of his career. I don't know if he retires, even if they win this game. I know the chefs in Tampa will be retiring after they have Bruce Arians and Andy Reid in town in the same week, so I know that'll be tough for them.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take you got there, Sam. I haven't heard that around anywhere else. I think
that's my own brainchild right there.
There you go, man. It's unique to say the very least, but I think I heard the Chiefs it was either the general manager, owner, someone high up in the Chiefs organization saying they're going to try to have the league investigate why Bieniemy didn't get any more not hires, but interviews than he did. So maybe that kind of clouds that prediction there, but I think that's a very interesting prediction.
Yeah, someone like the candidates, like Dan Campbell, I forgot his name, the guy that the Eagles hired.
Nick Sirianni.
He had one of the worst press conferences ever, but no, Bieniemy is way better than both those guys. It's just shocking that he was not hired, which is, a little sad because of him. He's a man of color, so I don't know if they were just not interviewing him because of that factor, but I think he's one of the greatest, offensive coordinators in the league today and one of the great offensive minds. So if he doesn't become the Chiefs head coach, I hope in a couple of years, maybe next year, he'll become a head coach somewhere. Well, there you have it. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.